Preface to Lyrical Ballads, paragraph number 4, revisiting. That is again, he tells that certain classes, act of writing in verse, an author makes a formal engagement that we will gratify certain non-habits of association, that he not only not only apprises the reader that certain class of ideas and expressions will be found in his book, but that others will be carefully excluded. So Wordsworth takes this or gives this takes this bail, that is a precaution, that or in a way he tells that he in the very beginning tells that I may be avoiding some of the existing roles, some of the existing norms. I will be challenging, or we, the romantic writers will be avoiding some roles, and we will be bringing forth something entirely new. And some people, of course, you may be finding it difficult to take it in the right sense at the beginning. In the beginning, you may feel like, oh, what kind of poetry is this? Till date, we have been getting very serious themes. Very serious and very complicated themes, but now they are writing about nature, flowers, gardens, and some solitary reapers. Unlike once we had poetry about kings, queens, and their kingdoms, royalty, royal court, everything you used to have kings for just for the sake of writing poetry, for praising kings and queens. But now you have something entirely different. Now they are into the nature, okay? And now he gives a lot of a list of time periods where people came up with something astonishing. Age of Dryden and Poe, age of Donne and Cowley. Each period witnessed something new. And Wordsworth claims that, of course, when they came, they gave something new, but now it is our time and we are giving something new. We are trying to give something new. So you just have to read this poem, and if you understand it in the right sense, you will get the idea. You will feel that this is a poetry inevitable. It's a very worthy of reading, and your aesthetic sense will make you bring the aesthetic quality of the poems will definitely make you happy. So this is the way you have Wordsworth claiming all these qualities, and all this he makes all these claims. Okay, so this is again. Now he tells that in the fourth paragraph. Now we are moving to the fifth one. So this is the important paragraph as far as the essay is concerned. Let me read for you the main points, not the essay intact, that we will do later. Paragraph number 5. The principal objects proposed in these poems was to choose incidents and situations from common life. This I have been talking about, or about the Wordsworthian idea, Wordsworthian poems. You have been getting this point, but in Wordsworth's own term, we see it here. The principal object. What do you mean by principal object? Please note down these points. Paragraph number 5. Please take down. Please take that. It's numbered in this particular file, so it's very good for you. The principal object, and you can see it to be marked in bold letters. That means we have been having just an introduction till paragraph number 4, but from paragraph number 5 onwards, we are into the ideas of Wordsworth. Okay, and the principal object. What do you mean by principal? P-R-I-N-C-P-L-E. It's not principal. Principal. Principal is the head of an institution, but principal is the primary, the main. Principal object proposed in these poems. No, I'm not going to read it in that way completely, but the main points I will highlight. So please listen back. The principal object proposed in these poems. Which poems? The poems on the part of the romantic writers, the new types of poems at that time, not now. Now we are used to romantic poetry, romantic literature, as we are used to neoclassic writing or modern poetry. All these are now, everything is part of the history, or in a way, a part of the literary canon as well. It's something old, but that time Wordsworth was introducing this, and he wanted it to have an introductory, see what you have, what you say, he just wants to nominate, or in a way he wants to make the claims about the poems, the quality, what we mean in these. That's what he's going to tell. The principal object proposed in these poems was to choose incidents and situations from common life. If you have a book and pen, just write down incidents and situations from common life. That means choosing incidents and situations. Unlike in the past, can you tell that a royal court, a royal, the kingdom of a ruler is something very common? Is something very really accessible to all laymen or the very simple and humble human beings all around? No. But a solitary reaper is not an exclusive site. You can see that, I can see that, anyone can have access to her songs. Right? So this is the way they were choosing incidents and situations from common life. It's very good that we have poetry on the part of Wordsworth already in studies in poetry paper. We have this solitary reaper as an example, a flesh and blood example in front of us, so that every time we can make sense of what he says or what he means by. It's just one of the poems of Wordsworthian romantic writings, but even in that case, we have that as an epitome example, the ultimate example of choosing incidents and situations from common life. Isn't it very common? Isn't the song a woman singing in the field while reaping or going for? See, it's very common, and it is not something exclusive for some elite people or kings or queens, but something very common. So they opted for this as the subject for their poetry, a theme of their writings, and to relate or describe them. So relating and describing them throughout, as far as possible, in a selection of language. Throughout, they want to make a language, in a selection of language really used by men. What do we mean by that? Language really used by men. That means the language which is accessible and can be understood by everyone, not just some very highly learned persons or elite persons, but anyone and everyone who reads their poetry can understand, can enjoy. So they wanted their language also to be very simple. Wordsworthian poetry, of course, if you compare it with the former kind or the neoclassic tradition, it's something really simple. They are talking about flowers, birds, nature, many things we see in nature. They are praising nature. So in that turn itself, you feel like an attachment. It's not something new to you. It's not, you see it every day and you feel like, oh, we forgot to see the beauty. And the poets are introducing you into that. Okay, so the really used by men at the same time, to throw over them a certain coloring of imagination, whereby ordinary things should be presented to the mind in an unusual aspect. That also needs much explanation. That is, at the same time, that is, you select a very simple language, that may be really used by laymen, but where they differ as a poetry, it has its own quality. And how do these poets bring that effect is, they are throwing a certain coloring of imagination. That is, I will get you with the example of solitary reaper itself. A woman singing in the paddy field. Okay, of course you can enjoy this song. Maybe you may be enjoying the rhythm of that. Now, normally we say it be koittu paattu. It has its own rhythmic structure, its own way of singing. Okay, and when a poet describes that, we know what happens in solitary reaper. The the poet is almost observing not just this woman, but the song as such, and he even claims is it about some melancholy or something, some past memories, nostalgia. Is she really happy or is she very sad? He's trying to analyze the song even. Normally, we do not go for analyzing the song sung by these women. Just we hear, and sometimes we feel like we have this enjoyment intact, but we never go in search of the meanings beyond that, or whether they are the mode of the singer. Not no, we never do that. But here, in that aspect, in that regard, he claims about throwing over them very natural and very simple events and situations, but they are trying to throw a certain coloring of imagination, whereby ordinary things should be presented in the mind in an unusual aspect. The profound song of the poet, the singer, she's singing something profound, very serious. There is melancholic tone. The person is even analyzing, and he is imagining, and he is throwing the coloring of that imagination on that as a whole. Okay? To make these incidents and situations interesting by tracing them truly the primary laws of nature. So, as a whole, as a human being, when they are singing, you can trace in them either happiness or sadness. So, even that kind of an imagination or in-depth reading, these poets are going for. So, this is just one of the incidents, and in many of their poems, you can see such in-depth reading and coloring of imagination into the themes and the situations they are analyzing. Okay, yeah, so that is the first part of that paragraph.
Situations from common life and to relate or describe them throughout as far as was possible in the selection of language really used by men, and at the same time to throw over them a certain coloring of imagination, whereby ordinary things should be presented to the mind in an unusual aspect.
Yes.
And further and above all, to make these incidents and situation interesting by tracing in them truly though not
ostentatiously the primary laws of our nature. Okay, so that's it.
Of our nature.
Yeah.
Chiefly as far as regards the manner in which we associate ideas in a state of excitement.
Yeah, that's it. That's enough. So, primary laws of our nature. Continuing with this paragraph number 5 of Lyrical Ballads. Here you have primary laws of our nature, chiefly as far as regards the manner in which we associate ideas in a state of excitement. So, a poet being in a state of excitement, we will talk about that as a definition that Wordsworth gives for poetry, or the making of poetry later, keep it there. But now I'm continuing with the next point. That's humble and rustic life was generally chosen. They were trying to choose humble and rustic life. Now you please don't try to read the essay, just listen to the points first. Humble and rustic life, isn't it? Just to think about the solitary reaper incident itself. Okay, humble and rustic. Rustic means the rural, the very normal kind of, the very village kind of life was generally chosen because In that condition, the essential passion of the heart find a better soil in which they can attain their maturity, are less under restraint, and speak a plainer and more emphatic language. This is a claim actually Wordsworth makes, or Wordsworth tries to emphasize, that is, a rustic life, a humble life. It is in that condition the essential passions of the heart. You leave out all those points, but one thing you just think. The village people, you try to attribute a kind of, we have this tendency to attribute a kind of innocence for the rural life. That's why we talk about the city, urban life. We differentiate the urban life where you are leading a very complicated and the busy and hectic life where you do not have time for innocent things or the very little or very small kind of enjoyment. Nothing is there, but you are every time you're busy. Parents do not have time to look after children. Children do not have time to go and play in the field. They are always in front of the computers or in front of the online classes. But now we have everywhere students doing all this. But here we have this differentiation tendency between the rural life and the urban life. So in that regard, actually Wordsworth claims here that is humble and rustic life. Essential in that situation, you have the people, they are living in a harmonious way, they are living in harmony with nature, and then if you are choosing them and if you are explaining, if you are representing their life, that is the essential passions of the heart. Those people only hold much passions in their heart for little. They are very innocent. They can enjoy everything in nature. They have time to enjoy or to be into the nature. And to represent them in this poetry, to talk about them in this poetry is more elegant. That's what Wordsworth claims. And they are less under the restraint. What do you mean by restraint? restraint. Restraint means the kind of the restrictions you have in your life. I don't have time. I don't have time. This is the way you once you are hectic or once you are chained inside your everyday schedules, you do not have time for anything. But it's not the case with the rural or simple people who are leading very simple and humble lives in the villages or rural areas. Their kids are almost always they play together, they gather together. Not during COVID-19 I'm talking, but normally we have this essential differentiation between rural life and urban life. Urbanization, urban life means city life. So flat, from one flat to another, there is no exchange of conversation. Right, the person next to the next doorstep, you may not even know about. If you are in a flat, that is the way sometimes it's not the case everywhere. Sometimes they are having very good and warm relationship, but as well as essentially, the term essentially means ideally we make it in that way, we understand it in that way, and they talk about, Wordsworth tells, these people are out of or not under the restraint or less under the restraint and speak a plainer and more emphatic language. They speak a plainer language. Their language also is of a simple kind. Their language also is not at all something complicated, or they never make it more sophisticated. Sometimes you might have come across people who even unlikely they make it more complicated, unlikely they make it more stylish. Just think about, we have our Kannur dialect. Okay, we have varieties of dialects for Malayalam. But Kannur dialect we know, and if a person in some other area, some other districts, if they speak a kind of, what you say, the standard Malayalam not in the sense that something like we talk about this Achadi Bhasha. Achadi Bhasha, it means even when I write, when you write, when any other persons belonging to different dialogue, other persons possessing different dialects write down. That is the common or standardized Malayalam that we use in our writing. But in our speech, if you try to make it every day, we do not use that. Actually, we are not used to that. We always talk like ada, uda. That is our language. We have to be proud of that. And you might have come across people who try to make it more complicated. They try very hard in some situation, just not always as well. Even not always, but when they are in a common group, when they are in a common gathering, they try hard to make it more of a kind of elegant or some kind of elegance within chords. They feel that the other one is something better. And of course, on a stage, sometimes it comes in that way. But in between, in our familial gathering, if you make it in that way, it is really awkward. You're trying to step into others' shoes. You are trying to step into the shoes of a size that is not at all matching to you. And that is again Wordsworth claims here. That also is told here. They speak a plainer language. They do not try to convince anyone. They do not want to convince anyone. They just live the way life comes to. Okay, it's not something we can, in nowadays also, we cannot always claim that all the rural or village people are very simple, very innocent. No. But comparatively or as a whole, if you talk about it as a common or basic understanding, as he tells, we can at least expect these people to be innocent. Now, this was the time of industrialization. Okay, those industrialization time, it was almost like a division between two. Either those who are in the city, who were earning, who were even ready to kill people for earning, and those who were never able to get any of these provisions. That is the kind of division Wordsworth means here. Not actually that we think about we have in front of us as the village and the city life now. It was actually about the time period when you have, industrialization, everything came with the Victorian time period, or the romantic period also you can mark down between all around that time, and this shift between simple rural life and the urbanization process you could mark down there. Okay. Now, because in that condition of life, our elementary feelings coexist in a state of greater simplicity. That you are not in a position to convince anyone. You can stay where you are. You can be proud and you can be happy about what you are. Just think about our trying to color our language, our dialect. You feel that those people who are standing in front of us are somewhere very learned, they are rich, and in front of them, if we talk in the way we usually, they may feel like they may take very negative, they may get very negative impression upon us. So that you also try hard to make it more of a kind of standardization you try to bring to your language, and it becomes even more awkward. But these people, this simplicity Wordsworth talks, he tells that elementary, in a condition, your elementary feelings coexist. That is, we are like this. So if you cannot understand our language, of course about Kannur dialect and all, people say, what is that? What is that? Normally, some of the words which we use for something is something entirely different in Trivandrum or some other areas. See, chaduga. What is chaduga for us? Chaduga? We are throwing away. We mean it for most often, we mean it at a very literal level, we mean it for throwing something away. But for them, it is just about jumping. Ila chaduga. If you go and tell ila chaduga in any other, some other, southern parts of, I think southern, those people do not understand even. How can a leaf jump? They ask back. So this is the way these differ. You can make clarification. because commonly you have Malayalam. So you do not have to try to fit yourself in their corner, in their mold. But it is essentially about remaining where you are. Otherwise, you cannot hold an identity. Otherwise, your language, what is the kind of dialect you are speaking? It is with that group, she talks in that way. It is with this gathering, she or he talks in this way. That should not be the case. That is the prominence, or that is the positive side. Wordsworth talks about these rural people where they have elementary feelings coexisting in a state of greater simplicity. They never worry about convincing anyone. They never worry or care about convincing or making something like a complicated answer. Okay, fine. Consequently, more accurately contemplated and more forcibly communicated. He tells that such a greater simplicity, or such a simplified language is more accurately contemplated. What do you mean by contemplating? Thinking deeply. That evokes more thought. That solitary reaper's song may be very simple, but it makes you contemplate. It makes you feel like contemplating upon that. The poet thinks about that, or he or she the speaker spends time to think about that. Contemplating. You are contemplating. You are thinking deeply. Please note down the meaning. Contemplating means thinking deeply, more forcibly communicated, and such a simplified and uncolored language, colored situation, you can communicate more forcibly as well. You can do better, you can do justice to that communication, justice to that theme, their language. They are once you portray them, you can do far justice, you can do much justice to them. Okay, yeah. Because the manners of rural life germinate from those elementary feelings. Because the manners of rural life germinate from elementary feelings. You are not worried about convincing. What do you mean by convincing? You feel like, oh, in front of them, I should behave in this way. I should be very mannerly. I should keep such kind of a standard that they have set for us. It's not about remaining what we are. But convincing means you have to make someone feel like, okay, they are fine, fit and all. ബോധ്യപ്പെടുത്തുക. Normally we have this exact Malayalam translation to be ബോധ്യപ്പെടുത്തുക. നമ്മൾ അതിന്റെ ആവശ്യമുണ്ടോ? Is it needed actually? In our life, are we supposed to convince every time whatever we do and whatever we say? Are you supposed to convince someone as an individual? Even as a grown-up individual, I emphasize. No, I feel it like right, and I have the right to do that. But when you are going to moral wrongs, and if you are doing something wrong, some people may tell you. Some people may correct you. That, of course, that option may be there. But every step you make, you are not supposed to convince anyone. You just have to convince your own conscience. So all these points, it's not just about Wordsworth. When you get one word's explanation, you have to get back all these ideas. You have to collect all these ideas. Okay. So this is about the rural life. Those people who are more in themselves, who are more satisfied in themselves. That is it. Okay. And more easily comprehended. What do you mean by this comprehending? Comprehension passages. What do you do in comprehension passages? What do you do usually? You read a passage and you understand, then you write down the answers on that. So writing down the answer is another point. It is just part of the examination. But comprehension as such means you are grasping the points. You are getting the points. You are understanding it thoroughly well. So here he tells that such people, their lives, that once portrayed in literature, they are more easily comprehended, more easily understood, and more durable. That is the another point he makes, more durable. Such language and such themes are more durable. The solitary reaper, not just one. They are all here, all around us. Whether in England or India or any other nations, you can see such people. And again, almost all of them singing. Normally we talk about this, this kind of you have come across this in language theories. There is some kind of noise or sounds commonly made by people who are doing some heavy works. Hope you remember that. Hey Lessa, hey Lessa. No, no. That kind of a sound normally in our areas people make like this just to what do you say, just to mitigate the burden of their work. They are involved in a work, but to not to feel the burden or the hard, tedious task they are undertaking, they just sing songs so that they are in one way or other their mindset is concentrated upon that singing, and they forget about the heaviness or the hard task they are taking up. Get the point? അത് നിങ്ങളൊരു ലാംഗ്വേജ് തിയറിയിൽ പഠിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. Just try to get it reminded. Just try to recollect that. That's fine. More durable, and in that condition, the passions of men are incorporated with the beautiful and permanent forms of nature. In that condition, the passions of men are incorporated with the beautiful and permanent forms of nature. So, in such a simple situation, simple lifestyle, their real passions, the elementary, natural passions of human beings are incorporated, taken as the theme of poetry more beautifully well. Okay, that such language has been adopted, that is purified from what appear to be its real defects. That is, such a language has been adopted. Wordsworth now tells that for our poetry, such a language had been adopted. And one more addition he makes, the purified from what appears to be its real defects. Okay, of course, you may be sometimes in English you talk about that to be Cockney, London Cockney. Now, as we talk about Kannur Malayalam, Thrissur Malayalam, it is Cockney when you talk about such a way of very broken and very basic, conversational English. It's not at all observing the rules of this grammar and all. It's not just we Malayalis make grammar mistakes when we use English or Hindi. Those people also make a lot of errors without, just for the sake of communication, they use this language, those rural people. So to bring their language, exactly I am bringing their language in poetry, Wordsworth, if he claims, that again can come as another threat to him, as another criticism. He is giving light to another criticism. So he already again takes the veil that, of course, we are trying to take the simple life, their language as much as possible, but by avoiding its defects as well. Defects of what kind he doesn't tell here, but defects. If some defects are there for such a language, we have tried to avoid that as also, because such men hourly communicate with the best objects from which the best part of language is originally derived. Actually, these languages evolve from time to time. The synchronic and diachronic study of language. So in that regard, in that way also, Wordsworth tells these men, they communicate and make this language enriched. They communicate hour after hourly. They communicate. They do not restrict their speech. They do it, they just talk and talk and talk, and their language, their expressions are more genuine and sincere. Okay. So, and he tells rank in the society, sameness, narrow circle of the intercourse, less under the influence of social vanity. These people are never worried about the rank in society. Once they are in their gathering, they communicate like anything. They make their points clear. They communicate without having any hesitation. They are more of what they are. They never try to make something. They do not try to say cover their faces with the mask, not the mask in the literal the mask that we use now, but what kind of the color that is you are behaving like someone else. You are trying to be someone else. That is what you mean. You are hiding yourself. That is not there in between or among these rural people. That's what Wordsworth tells. And the influence of social vanity. What do you mean by vanity? Vanity. All this, please note down the meaning of these terms. You learn something new, like contemplating, vanity, something again very vainglorious. That is, you have an unlikely pride. Oh, I will be, if I talk my Kannur dialect, Kannur Malayalam, that people may take me for some very barbarous or something. So this is the way you have social vanity. There is no influence for these people. They are devoid of that. They are free from this social vanity. And they convey their feelings and notions in simple and unelaborated expressions. That is, they convey their feelings in simple and unelaborate. Unlikely elaborations are not there. Okay, unlikely elaborations are not there. I will send you a very beautiful chart for this. So how you can communicate things well, things in a very simple manner. There was a troll and I will try to find it out. It was very beautifully communicated. I will tell you. The likely complications we make. Right, to make somewhere we feel like otherwise in front of us, in front of others, to make ourselves somewhere great. We try to make what we are not. We try to profess ourselves to be something different. And that's what actually Wordsworth wants to avoid, or any other romantic writers wants to avoid, he claims. Now, such a language is more permanent, more philosophical, and arising out of repeated experience and regular feelings. He tells such a language is more permanent. That language you should not think that it is going to be over within 2 or 3 years. That poetry, once it is out of fashion, it will go. And about he claimed was true as well. Whenever you think about poetry, it's Wordsworth who comes to your mind. As you talk about drama, immediately Shakespeare comes as the synonym or epitome. Right? So more philosophical. You may think that this is rural, this is simple language, but that has its own philosophical philosophy, the depth in it, and of course repeated experience. It is out of their repeated experience and regular feelings. They are almost always consistent. Their life is not very complicated, so that has its own permanence. Than the poet's art, that is separate themselves from the sympathies of men. And he tells about the separate themselves from the sympathies of men. He talks about in proportion as they separate themselves from the sympathies of men and indulge in arbitrary and capricious habits of expression in order to furnish food for fickle tastes and fickle appetites of their own creation. It means, just don't worry about all those points. I will get you very simple notes for this, don't worry. But this essay intact to be taught was really important. Okay, so that's all with it. Today, what you have to do is, after this class, immediately after this class, paragraph number 5, you have to, I will send you the survey heart. And in that I will get you how to, it's a short note of paragraph, short briefing of paragraph number 5 you will have to do today. Okay, briefing of paragraph number 5. That's enough. Do one thing, just write down. In survey heart we will do it together from 1 to 5. You just do one thing. You make a note, short note, and send 5 of you send that short notes to me today itself. Okay.